Hey guys, what's up? It's Kay, and today I'm not gonna review anything today, sorry about that, but what I have decided on uploading today was pretty much talk about Gundam figures, and because I ever since I started collecting, um, I always had this idea that Gundam figures were always better than the kits in terms of quality, plastic quality, and scale. Sometimes, yeah, but normally it's just the quality and the overall detail of the Gundam figures. They're always better than the kits. But well, don't get me wrong though. Kits are very versatile, but not all of us have the scale to modify or paint, or detail up kits to make them look better. And I'm one of them actually. I started with kits. I never really liked it, so I transitioned to Gundam figures. So I'm gonna, and a lot of people don't know much about the different toy lines, but I am one. I guess you can say I'm one of those guys who really focus on Gundam figures. Though I don't have a lot of information regarding all of them. They are quite a lot, but I'm gonna tell you the things that I know. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and start with the Mobile Suit in Action toy line, or better known as MSIA. Now, for MSIA, it started back. It's actually, as far as I know, it's the longest running toy line out there. So it started back in 1999 and it ended at 2010, so that's a decade. So that's quite impressive for a toy line that's still running. Well, it's not really running, it's already discontinued, but they were pretty awesome back in the day, and a lot of people are still collecting them because some of them are still really good, and there's still a few actually, there's still a few Gundam figures that I still like from the line. One of them being the Elmeth and the Albion figure. But anyway, so with the MSIA figures, it was really popular back then. It's because they were really affordable, because they were just small. They're actually small, and they're not as big as 1144 figures or model kits, but they're not really small as well. So they're kind of in between. So they're very durable. The plastic is pretty good, and yeah, and they're actually very detailed, because that's pretty much, I guess, the first toy line that added panel lining on figures. Now, I don't know if you noticed that, but they did. And the thing is, with MSIA figures, most of them pretty much have the same mold. By that I mean they have the same elbow joint. They all have the same hip joint, knee joint, and most of the figures were like that. So it's actually easier to modify or kit bash or figure bash MSIA figures, because they're all on ball joints basically. And under the MSIA line, they also released the extended MSIA line. So these were the much better figures, though they only have a few that they released, but every extended MSIA figure that they released had a better paint application and definitely better detailing. Oh my god. And also better articulation as well. And the thing I love about MSIA, it's every Gundam figure collector's dream, I guess, because the MSIA line released everything from Gundams or mobile suits to grunt units. They also released transport vehicles, warships, a lot of stuff that not many lines did. So from that decade that they were active, they did release a lot of stuff. And yeah, for as far as I know, it got discontinued because of sales. You can correct me on that one, but the sales were just dropping. Oh, and by the way, aside for MSIAs, it's divided in, I guess, when Bandai US or Bandai America, got its copyright. I'm not really sure what you call it, but Bandai America got their hands on the toy line as well. So MSIA figures were released were released in Japan, and the Bandai in America also released their own MSIA figures. That's why, let's say the RX-782 Japanese MSIA looks different than the US MSIA RX-782, and most of the time, well, all the time, in most cases, the Japanese MSIA is going to be always better than the US release or the US variants. So yeah, so going back, it got discontinued as far as I know because of sales. It began, dropping for some reason around 2010, and this was also the time that I guess they decided to just stop the production, because they keep releasing the same mold, and this is just my opinion, because if you're a MSIA collector, you'll actually notice that they're all the same mold. So they transitioned, I guess, to Robot Damashi, or Bandai just decided to just announce a new line that focuses on articulation, which is the Robot Damashi or Robot Spirits figures. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So we're gonna go next, or I'm gonna discuss the GFF line, which is my favorite. Now the GFF line, let me just focus this on the Musha Gundam. Now the GFF line was produced by Katoki Hajime, and this toy line pretty much, the good thing about this toy line was they actually released not only the popular units in the Gundam franchise, like let's say the RX-782 and the Double Zeta and the Zeta Gundam. The one thing I liked about the GFF line, which the MSI never did, well, they did, but I guess the GFF did it better. I'm not really sure, but they did release a couple of figures from novel. So like let's say the EXS Gundam, and they also had the Blue Destiny Gundam, you know what I mean? And the thing about GFF figures is, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but oop, it started falling out. So with the GFF figures, this thing actually focuses on detail rather than articulation. Now I'm just gonna remove this. So if you can see, we're gonna focus on the Musha Gundam here. This looks like this out of the box, so it's really beautiful. If you check and see that the paint apps, it has a matte coating on there, and I didn't put the decals, it's already pre-painted on there, so it's really beautiful. I love the GFF line. It's just it really looks good on your shelf. And since it was produced by Hajime Katoki, all of the figures that they released have that Verka proportion. So if you notice, I'm not really sure if you're gonna notice, but the head is actually the RX-782 Verka's head. Alright, and other than that, oh yeah, and one thing I remember, I'm not really sure if this is correct, the figures also, some of the figures in the toy line were replicas of model kits that were done by certain hobbyists or certain Gunpla modelers. You can correct me on that one, but in most cases though, they just released figures of what's in Hajime Katoki's Gundam Fix Figuration art book. And that art book can still be purchased online if you just search for the art book, and it has some photorealistic pictures if you have it. And what else, and it got discontinued in 2010, and as far as I remember, the last figure that they ever released was the full armor unicorn Gundam back in 2010, and I was able to get one. And right now the figures, since some of the figures are still popular to some collectors, some of the figures are still pricey. Like, let's say the Rizal, being the one of the last figures that they released. Right now the Rizal is around 12,000 to 14,000 yen. The Gundam Mark III is around 14,000 yen, and the limited edition Strike Rouge has the launcher and sword pack. That was a web shop exclusive, so it's still around 14,000 yen in the online market. So they're really pricey, and the most expensive one is the Psycho Gundam GFF line. Sorry, the Psycho Gundam from the Metal Composite line under the GFF line. They released a variant of it. It's the Hong Kong Night version of the Psycho Gundam, which retails around $500 as far as I know. I was able to sell one back when I was still selling toys. But yeah. So right now they discontinued the 1 to 1/4 scale figures. Well, they're really, most of them are non-scale, but if I just compare them to other figures, they're pretty much 5 to 6 inch. So some of them, so since it's non-scale, some of them are a hit, some of them, you know, are a little bit small, some of them are just right. But the Musha Gundam is just right in my opinion. So I guess they discontinued the toy line because of a lot of issues. One, since it focused on detail, the figures are not really playable. Just like the Shin Musha Gundam here, parts keep falling off, and like you notice, I was attaching the leg and it keeps falling off. And aside from playability, there are a few GFF figures that I know, and I already confirmed this, that once you buy, like, there are some figures that I know that once you buy them and open them, they're already broken. And one of them is actually, let's say, the Gundam X and the G Gundam. That's one of the few GFF figures that already has a defect out of the box. So it's pretty much quality issue. I guess that's why they discontinued the figure. Though the Metal Composite line, which is their 1 to 100 scale figures, are still actually active for some reason. They reissued the 1/100 RX-72, the origin version, and they also recently released the Banshee Awakening version with the green cycle frame. So the 1/100 scale metal composite line is still active, but sadly though, the 1 to 1/44 scale is already discontinued. And I also wanted to add this, under the GFF line, there's also variants, I guess, that under the GFF line. They also have the Xenography line, and it's pretty much the same. It's GFF figures, but then it's focusing on Xeon units. Now you see there's like this, let's say the Xenography Perfect Xeon, the Xenography Camphor, the Goof Custom, and all that good stuff. So they have the Xenography line. They also have the Cosmic Region line, which focuses on seed units. So you have the GFF Strike Freedom, you have the Freedom Gundam, you also have the what else, the Akatsuki Gundam, and you also have the 00 region, which is, I think they only, as far as I know, they only released one figure there, which is the MSIA, and they released prototypes of the Thrones, but they never really released those figures. And I'm not really sure if you knew, since the GFF line was produced by Katoki, they transitioned to Robot Spirits or Robot Damashi. So if you are aware of the CAS signature or the KA signature line, those are pretty much GFF figures that transition to, I guess, the newer generation of figures, since it was also produced by Katoki himself. Now, since we're done with the GFF line, we're gonna focus next on the HCM Pro or the Super HCM Pro. Now, let's focus. Let's give it this guy. Alright, let's focus on him. Now, the HCM Pro started in 2004 and it ended in 2009. These things are 1:200 in scale, so pretty much half the size of 1:144 scale figures. So they release a lot of 1:200 figures. Pretty much they focus on small figures that has the detail and quality of high-end figures, which is pretty nice. So if you have like those jumbo scaled warships, model kit warships that's pretty much compatible with 1:200 scale figures, those looks really nice with the HCM Pro figures. Now in 2007, around 2007, HCM Pro released 2 Evangelion figures, and it's pretty hard to find as well, but yeah, they did that as well. And under the HCM Pro, they also released a couple of 1:144 scale figures, which is what they call the Super HCM Pro. Now, the Japanese actually call the HCM Pro line the HCM Pro, which is pretty much what HCM Pro stands for: High Complete Model Progressive. So the Japanese call them HCM Pro. The more you know. Alright, but yeah, they released a few figures in 1:144 scale. Now the good thing about this is, I guess Bandai tried to correct their mistakes with the GFF line, since the GFF line were well known for their detail, but they lack the articulation, so they're not really playable. So they did the super high complete model progressive line, which pretty much 1:144 scale figures that has they gave it, they gave the figure really nice articulation. And as you can see, this thing actually has decals all over, and it has that gloss finish all over the figure. So they actually tried, answering, or I guess they actually tried nailing the detail department and the articulation department with the Super HCM Pro line, but for some reason they discontinued it. They discontinued the figure line. I honestly don't know why. I really like the Super HCM Pro line, because they pretty much made a 1:144 figure that has features of master grades or perfect grades, as it's just how you see it, but pretty much 1:144 scale figures that has master grade features, like this unicorn right here. This guy can actually transform, but it doesn't transform like the master grade does, but you just have to part swap the things, or some parts here, like let's say the legs can just close out. You can see how this guy can transform already. And then as for the head, all you have to do is just swap it. So you can see the Gundam head right there. Let me just zoom in. Okay, let's focus, and if I turn this around, you will actually start seeing the unicorn's face, or the unicorn mode's unicorn face. But yeah, that's pretty much actually good, and it's the only transforming unicorn figure in 1:144 scale. And don't get me started on the RX-782 and the Charles Zaku figure, because those are badass as well. Some hate this figure, some don't. I really love this, and I got really disappointed when they announced the Super HCM Pro Alex Gundam. It had the Chobham armor going on, and what's good about it is the panels on the Chobham armor was you can actually open those panels, which is really nice. the MSIA Alex didn't have that feature. The GFF Alex, as far as as far as good look, as far as I know, it never had that feature as well. So it was really something. It was really something new that I was hoping that they would release it, but they never did. So what else do we have? And so that's done. So this is pretty much HCM Pros were figures that focused on detail and articulation, but for some reason they discontinued it. And it's one of the best lines out there. If you're like, let's say you're looking for the best unicorn Gundam figure or the best RX-782 figure, I suggest, I highly recommend to get the Super HCM Pro Super HCM Pro figures. Now moving on is the SCM EX figures. Now these guys were, as far as I know, they started back in 2006 and ended in 2011. Now the SCM EX was actually the successor of the SCM line. Now if you search for SCM figures, let's say the RX-782, you're gonna notice that the SCM RX-782 looks way different from the SCM EX RX-782. Now the thing that they changed with the SCM EX was, first off, the quality. It's better than the SCM line, and also if you notice, this guy actually doesn't look like your regular RX-782. This thing was redesigned. It has like that Evangelion Evangelion proportions. As you can see, it's toned down, or it's actually skinny. So so these things were announced, but they never had a retail price, because the SCM or any band Presto figures that they released, the only way that you can get one of the figures is to play the UFO catcher games or the crane machine games. How, like when you go to arcade places, there's that thing with the crane, and then you're gonna insert a coin and you have to win it. So pretty much it. So these things never really had a price. That's why since the SCM EX line is also discontinued, they really increased the price on the popular figures. Especially one of them is actually the GM figures, which are really pricey right now, and especially the black TriStar set. When you get the set, is really pricey right now and very hard to find, because they never really made it to the retail stores, and the ones who had the figures, will really increase the price because it's really popular and it's high in demand. So so the SCM, oh, I forgot, let's move back to the HCM Pro line. So how I told you the SCM EX line is the successor of the SCM line. This one also, the idea actually applies to this guy as well. Back then, many years back, I think back in the 70s or 80s, not really sure, pretty sure it's the 70s or something, in the early 80s. Back then they had the HCM line, which is also a figure line that I think it's in 1 to 1/44 scale. I forgot. It's just a really old figure, but yeah, they tried to, I guess, revive the toy line, and when they announced the new toy line, they called it HCM Pro with the Pro on there, like how SCM had the SCM EX or SCM X line. They just added something to just let the people know it's new. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So that's the SCM line. I'm almost done collecting these guys. So next, we're gonna focus on what we have right now currently, which is the Robot Spirits figures, or Robot Damashi figures. Now these things are what we have right now and what's easy to find in the market, and they're pretty much the toy line that really focused on articulation. So if let's say we put this is just how I understand things. So let's say let's put the GFF here, and let's put the let's see, the SCM EX here. Okay, basically for the RD figures, they wanted to, I guess, do a figure that's somehow in between. Well, not really. Let's remove the SCM EX line and just focus on the high complete model here. So they wanted a figure that will have an, I guess, articulation as good as the high complete model progressive figures, but then the detailing will not be, I guess, as good as the GFF line. So it's somewhere in between. So what we have here is the the RD figures. So the reason why I said this is because Robot Spirits figures out of the box, they really look plain. Like, unlike figures such as the GFF figures have those lining, you know, they already have those lining, and the decals, it's already pre-painted and whatnot, and the Robot Damashi figures really don't have anything. It's painted well, it's colored plastic, but I guess, you know, they just, I guess it's cost production, or they're trying to how do you say that, they're trying to lessen, I guess, the cost of manufacturing those figures. That's why they never really added panel lining and decals on the figure anymore, not like what they did with the GFF figures or the MSIA line, which is, you know, understandable, I guess. It's effective. You can, you know, it's not like you can no longer add those. I always add decals and panel line on my RD figures. But yeah, so that's actually what I have. And if you have questions, as much as I want to discuss all of them, I only have a few figures here that I can talk about, but I can discuss some of the figures, some of the figures from other toy lines in the future. I just need data, I guess, because I don't have those figures, but I do have an idea on what figures they released. It's just that, you know, I wanted to talk about what I have and what, you know, you people wanted to know. So I'm not really sure if this was helpful, you know, but I tried my best, and if you don't like it, that's fine. But I just wanted to, you know, let my viewers know about those certain toy lines, why they got discontinued, and that's it. So if you like this video, do like it, and please do subscribe. I'll promise to make more videos, and I'll see you guys on my next video. Bye bye.